Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
From the piney woods in the great American state of Texas, I give you a good evening, good morning, and good afternoon for another edition of Late Night with Cap. My name is JT Gunn. Hey!
Nice.
There you go. There's my intro. What'd you think?
Awesome.
Good stuff.
I'm not going to lie. That music, I'm mildly aroused right now. Mildly.
I
may be mildly aroused, but I got a full chub going.
Yeah, I figured I will take a chance and play the infamous Art Bell intro.
Oh, it's the best.
And I even did my little spin on his introduction. What'd you think?
It was good.
Good. I liked it.
Now everybody knows where I live, but if you can find it. That's something we remember, right? When you would turn into Art Bell, you would hear that music, you would hear, and then his voice would come on. Sound a lot better than mine, but
and I think he was one of the first broadcasters to say, and live on the internet. He would always throw that in there at the end.
Well,
I did not know that.
When that became a thing. Yeah, you're right. When we moved into that era, because Art Bell was a man of the time.
Mm-hmm.
He had a MySpace site because I remember listening to the show and someone had made a counterfeit Art Bell site on MySpace and he was really pissed about it. He's like,
yeah,
that's not my site. Mine is Art Bell, blah blah blah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine him today on Twitter?
I can imagine on YouTube though. YouTube, the man would be there.
Yep.
I was going to say, I love
right now
listening to his old episodes, and he's like, go onto the website, and he's like, sorry, it's going to take a few minutes for this picture to download that somebody wanted to share with me.
Keith Rowland, I'm sending you a picture of the Chupacabra. Can you upload it?
It's going to take 18 minutes for this to print out in my studio, but while we're waiting...
Yeah, very, very, very cool stuff. And we're gonna have conversations like this for probably a good hour or so. But we're here tonight. Art Bell was a very captivating host, and he was famous for his quite a few shows, but most famous for the Coast to Coast AM show. He did another show called Dreamland, Midnight in the Desert, and even a show called Dark Matters. I never heard of that one.
That's when he came back. Remember, he was off the air for a long time, and then he came back. That's what Dark Matter was.
Well, he went off the air because his wife died, right?
He retired.
Well,
he semi-retired.
He actually had He actually had some kind of rough spots for other stuff. And then I think he was at Dark Matter. Actually, was broadcast. I know I'm going like deep dive here. Was in the Philippines.
You're like going at 99.
Yeah, because he had to go get another wife in the Philippines. That's why he did it.
You're
well,
like...
they're not cheap, but they are aplenty. So
Ramona wanted him to.
I would just say is he could have found one locally. That's what I did. So,
but yeah, he mostly aired.
Oh, by location.
If you do not know who we're talking about, and if you are here and you know who we're talking about, great. And I welcome you, and I do appreciate you all watching. And make sure you do hit the like button. That would be fantastic. But he did most of his. He did a lot of his radio from his own radio station in Pahrump, Nevada, which can you imagine set up your own radio station? I barely can handle this. And he did his own radio station, and he was always interested in the conspiracy theories, paranormal, Bigfoot. Random people would call him, tell these random stories about.
Oh my God, the callers,
ghost, and then then like they would cry, they would scream, and he was such a good interviewer that he would just let them talk, right? And every now and then he would pop in and be like, whoa, like tell me more, right? So he was always good at that. So all these great interviewers that you have today, I would assume a lot of them would say I learned a lot of my trades from him. So I think even Joe Rogan at one time even mentioned that that he liked what he did and took a lot from his shows. So I mean,
Joe got to be on Midnight in the Desert.
He did.
Nice.
So
he did.
I think that was like a big treat for him. But I was gonna say, yeah, he was really good at giving people opportunities to speak. And then, but he never seemed like he just was like placating them or just immediately believing them. You know, he would push back on them too.
He would.
So he was also very kind.
But he was nice about it.
Even with the crazy people, he was still a kind host.
Yes.
And that was which was always remarkable because every now and then he'd get a guy on the phone who was clearly a bag of cats. And I'd let him go, be like, well, it's time for a break now. Let's get our sponsor something gold, and then blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah. And he always. A lot of people have favorite moments and everything. And
he never screened calls. I want to say that was like his big thing.
It was remarkable as a national radio show because it was unscreened. So it was the luck of the draw in terms of who would come through. The other thing is that what Art did is he realized it's the middle of the night. I'm going to treat this like we're huddled around the campfire. And we may be telling tall tales, we may be telling true stories, but there's something very primal about people and in the evening gathering around a fire, telling stories to intrigue each other, spook each other. And that's what he channeled, and he called it theater of the mind.
Right. And And we are going to go through some of those stories tonight. But before we get started, I just wanted to give everyone a few minutes to introduce themselves in case you weren't sure who they were. And then kind of give like a brief introduction how the guest came across Art Bell. And I'll go last, and I'll go first with Roman because he seems like he needs a talk. He's very he's like he's got a lot to say tonight.
You bring the hummingbird on the show, then you're surprised when he hummingbirds. All right, fair enough. So thank you for having me. By the way, I was so excited when you sent me this thing, a few weeks ago. Hey, I'm going to do a show on Art Bell. I'm like, Definite fanboy moment. I love Art Bell so much. So I'm Roman of the Empire. Got a show on Thursdays. We talk about nerd stuff. It's very exciting. But so I was introduced to Art Bell. I was in the Navy for an odd amount of time. And for part of that odd amount of time, I worked nights, which was late into the evening when all the normal people are asleep. But on the drive home, what I would get is dun 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 dun, and be like, Art Bell's on. I have someone to listen to, and someone who's talking to me as I'm driving home. And that's when I would get those wonderful stories. But they'd also rebroadcast him on Sunday evenings at like 6 or 7 o'clock p.m. So like sane hour. So you actually got to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah,
and absorb all these
like a 3-hour show,
fantastic stories, and everyone. I would say there wasn't really any duds with the Art Bell show. There are shows that are more interesting than others, but you never really got a show you're like, whatever. But I mean, I'm grateful to Art Bell because without him, I don't think any of us probably exist in this medium that we have now.
True.
He was the forerunner to almost everybody else. So thank you for having me here tonight. And I'm so excited. You may not be able to tell to talk about this topic.
I can't tell at all. Now I'm going to go with Jason, but your name says crop circles on Mars.
Yeah, I want to stick with the theme of it being an Art Bell show. So yeah, my name is Jason Sandberg. I'm the artist, writer, publisher of Jupiter, which is a comic book that's in demand, available on Indiegogo. Currently working on issue 2. So from 1994 to 1998, I was working night shift in a printing company. I love the autonomy. Nobody was there. There's maybe one other person in the building, but I love the autonomy. I kicked butt. I got a lot done, but I had time to listen to music. And eventually, music got old. I started looking around, and I came across some guy talking about crop circles. I'm like, what? And I stuck around. It was Art Bell. So that made him appointment listening every night for basically 4 years, right? And he brought me great moments in radio, never to be repeated, such as when he glued his lips shut on air. Such as the night where he forgot they had torn down the deck on the back of his trailer home. So he stepped out to have a smoke during a commercial break, fell 6 feet down into a rebar, had to crawl around the front of his house and climb into the producer's chair and say, "I need the station to play a replay. I fell off. I need to go to the hospital." Great moments like that will live with me forever. I've got so many favorite Art Bell moments, but where he really, just to show you how much I appreciate him. This is issue 3 of the 1990s version of Jupiter that I published, is black and white. And Art Bell does make a cameo on the last page of issue 3. Right there, you can see that there's Art Bell saying, "East of the Rockies, you're on the air." So
that's awesome.
Just a little cameo
cool.
that Art Bell made in Jupiter. But I'm so glad to be here, and I look forward to hearing your other stories of other people here, and sharing that excitement and reminiscing.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story to remember him by. That's pretty fun. Now, Lambercy, when did you first hear Art Bell?
I was a kid. I grew up in the system and stuff, but I enjoyed listening to or reading about or anything that had to do with like things that could be fantastical and stuff. And what really caught my attention is one time I had the radio on, and they started playing the episode where the guest came in talking about his sighting of Bigfoot. And from there, it was just like, when you're just a small child and your imagination's going wild, hearing something like that and hearing someone talk about their experiences. Now, whether or not he actually saw Bigfoot or not, remains to be seen. But, as a child, you believe pretty much anything.
Right.
So
we're going to talk about one of his Bigfoot stories. So we'll see whether you think if that's the one you remember or not. But that's great. I mean, I'm sure it's great that a young audience can listen to him and adults at the time when he was on, because he even said that too. He's like, no cussing when you come on, try not to cuss, because there's all ages who watch the show. And I do remember him mentioning that a few times. Death Row, welcome, man. When did you first start hearing?
It's kind of spotty for me, but because I worked a couple of night shift jobs when I was younger. One of them was loss prevention. I do remember the lady that was in the guard office before me. She had it set to John Tesh or whatever. I was like, I'm not listening to that all night. I'm about to fall asleep in this crap, so I had to change it. And that's when I kind of come across it then. And I would have to remind myself to move it back to her stations because it was her radio. And, so I had to memorize that station.
Was that the love lady that would take love advice on the line?
No, John Tesh was like a failed.
I thought you said Johanna.
Remember, he was a co-host of Entertainment Tonight in the early 90s.
Okay.
And there was a conspiracy that he was an alien. There's some people that wanted a lock of his hair. I don't know if you recall that, but
no. But I was just gonna say, is that how Rowe went deaf? Listening to too much John Tesh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's fun. And R2, my great co-host from After the Weekend. When did you first? You're like a super fan of this guy.
I do, but the funny thing is, I listened when he was around. I listened to him very little. I got introduced to him by a coworker in the mid 2000s when my family had a hobby shop. It was a guy. He was a former Navy vet, and he was telling me about Art Bell one night when we were closing, and I forget how it came about, but I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I've never heard of this. And he's like, it's so crazy. It's all this weird stuff. He's like telling me about Mel's Hole. He's like, oh, there's this bottomless pit. And then he's like, just recently, he's like supposedly in Siberia, they drilled down and they could hear hell.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh man, you got to listen to it. And he plays it. And I'm like, sounds like the subway, man. It's not just like a bunch of people just yelling inside a subway tunnel. And he's like, no, but he's like, it's crazy. He's like, what is it? And whatever. and occasionally a few times, like driving home late at night, you know, sometimes I would be able to catch the show and listen.
Yeah. See,
But I didn't really get back into him until later with YouTube, and kind of by then he had actually quit, you know, stopped doing a show.
a lot of
and
his
then, you know,
stuff's on
sadly,
YouTube.
yeah, passed away. But there are times that, like, I wish I could have listened in. You know, like there's kind of some, you know,
Kind of missed
trying to
out
think of
on
the
the
word,
live
controversy with him though. Like, he talked a lot about Hail Bop. Remember when that
Yep.
happened, and
Yep.
Heaven's Gate?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
talked a lot about September 11th when that was going on. I think of, like, me and my brother spending a week in my aunt and uncle's office because we just watched TV. I'm like, oh my God, if we had listened to Art Bell.
So Canadian Spirit, thanks for showing up. Says that the audio clip that you're mentioning, R2, came from the old 1950s horror movie.
Yeah. I remember
So-
hearing, I mean, it got debunked, but
A lot of it, some stuff has gotten debunked.
but it was always just, whether you believed it or not, it was always compelling. It was
fun.
always interesting. It was always fun. And even too, sometimes he didn't have somebody kind of crazy on. He would actually have somebody somewhat normal. Like one time he had on, this was an old school hacker guy named Captain Crunch. And he talked about how he had discovered, you know, there was this little little whistle that you got out of Captain Crunch. And that if you played certain tones, you could get free phone calls. This is back in the early 70s. And, you know, I mean, he would have some really cool people come on, and
yeah.
I missed that.
I think he was well respected in the radio world because he literally started his own station, and he was very like Roman mentioned earlier, he was very respectful for all his guests. Now, I bet you're all wondering how I found him. Now I went to art school way back in the early 2000s.
You went to his school?
Yeah, I did.
School.
So I worked in the day to pay the bills, and then I went to night school. And I would, and this is a time when I didn't have like my own personal computer and like all the Adobe software and stuff. So you had to like work in the computer lab. So I would have a class from like probably 6 o'clock to 8, and then I would have to finish all my homework and stuff like that until all the way till midnight. They left that place open really late. So we would have some of the teachers would play it, or I would listen into it on my way home, which would be like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I would wake up again and go to work. So yeah, I listened to a lot of his shows in the car while I'm doing my homework at school and everything. A lot of his shows were fun, and one of my favorite ones we are going to talk about it. It's on the list of the shows that we're going to go over. I'm guessing a lot of people would guess it. It's the Bigfoot story. So, but anyways, it was always fun listening to him at night. I had a friend, Vanquish. He's on Twitter out there. He's like a super fan of him. So we would always talk about his shows all the time as well. So it's always good to like when you listen to his shows and then like, hey, did you listen to last night's version or did you hear about this story? So it always spurs conversations wherever you are. And I think that's why he's going to be remembered for a long time.
I do find it remarkable that when it comes to the medium of radio, there's some classic radio shows that there'll be like a niche of people that are like, oh, these old time radio shows like The Shadow. I watch this. It's very niche. What I have found is that with myself and with a lot of other people, they can listen to an Art Bell show from the 90s and still be engaged and still be entertained.
Right.
And I think that there's a timelessness that is because of Art's personality, the subject matter. Maybe it's a window into a different part of Americana. But I do want to point out that it isn't. We're not here talking about old time radio. It is old. I mean, it's very old. It's 30 some of this is 25, 30 years old.
Yeah.
But it's not like those other people who appreciate old time radio. There's something special about Art's show.
Right. And I got a little story about him here, like where he started. So Art Bell's career forged a path in the realm of late night radio. He was born in 1945 in North Carolina. He began radio as a radio icon marked by one innovation and determination. So he was always determined to do this. After serving in the U.S. Air Force, he embarked on his broadcasting career, eventually landing gigs and various radio stations across the country. So he did radio even before he did the weird paranormal radio. It wasn't until he settled into Pahrump, Nevada, where he built his station, which is crazy. He founded a radio station, KNYE, and that he really truly found his voice. He was it was from this small town that he launched his groundbreaking show Coast to Coast AM, captivating audiences with his unparalleled blend of conspiracy theories, like we said, paranormal discussions, and engaging storytelling. He was just always dedicated, right? You mentioned, I think Roman mentioned this too. He was dedicated to his craft. He was nice to his engine. He did his own things for a while. He was his own producer, his own engineer, and host. But he was always really cordial to his guest, and that pretty much cemented himself as a pioneer of late night radio, and some even say YouTube. And his legacy, I think, would continue on. So we're going to listen to a little short video, and then we'll kind of hear him and talk about that, about how why he got started and where he came from. So we'll see.
Coast to Coast began as actually a political show, kind of like everybody else's political show that radio is infested with. And one day I got sick of doing the same damn thing over and over again, same politics over and over. And I began to sort of inject a different kind of programming, aliens and
3 points of light. The weird thing about them,
Coast to Coast became the fourth most popular program on American radio.
it was really weird.
like they were doing a dance.
Yeah, exactly. And they went over the rooftop.
I think we're fascinated with the whole concept of alien intelligence because it would be so strange if we were all alone. Imagine for a moment how it would feel if we were all alone, if there was no other life, intelligent life, anywhere in all that you see out there.
So there you go. So he was talking politics, got tired of it, decided to do something different. I could relate to that. So, what do you feel?
Hearing his voice though again,
Shivers.
his voice is one of the most recognizable voices ever.
Yeah. Shivers. You got shivers there, Roman?
Absolutely. I did. Again, mildly aroused.
Well,
not gonna lie.
I was gonna say, I felt like it wasn't really mentioned there, but yeah, he did a lot of political, like just talk radio.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gun control, abortion, war on drugs.
But
Yeah,
what
over
really
and over. Yep.
created the whole coast to coast was Oklahoma City happened. And he just started talking about it, but somebody called in about a conspiracy, and from that it snowballed. And he started to go away from the political talk because he really just enjoyed talking to people and kind of talking about, non-mainstream topics and the stuff that, the media wasn't talking about, I guess. So that was kind of the thing that kicked it off.
So and I think around that time X-Files was a show, right? Everybody thought was weird. And then you had what was the other? You had Unsolved Mysteries around it with him. You had what was the one? Was it Sightings? Was it called Sightings on Fox with like aliens, stuff like that? So there was a lot of this going on. He was kind of on radio, but there was a lot of stuff like this on TV where people weren't really used to talking about the paranormal. Now you see it all over, right? There's like, I think the Travel Channel's got like 100 paranormal shows.
But
like
you
have a ghost in your laundry room.
Though. They don't, because those are like parody shows. I think of them as parody shows.
Yeah.
Art Bell's show wasn't a parody show.
No. Art Bell had he had go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
No.
So Art Bell, it wasn't a parody show. He had former Walter Cronkite consultant, Angstrom Science winner Richard Hoagland on, and that brought a level of science and precision and seriousness to the topic of UFO sightings and pyramids on Mars and glass domes on the moon.
The Mars stuff and the moon stuff. It's funny though, Jason. So I'm listening to a show from 19 whatever. I don't remember which 90s show it was, but Hoagland was on and he was talking about the moon and all the structures they found on the moon.
Glass structure.
And we have all this footage of the moon and how, if it, in 30 years, I wonder what people are going to think of this. And I'm listening to the show and I'm like, bro, no one paid attention. No one cared. It's like, it sucks because, like, man, I was excited about it. I'm like, there's structures on the moon. But then it's like, it's 30 years later now.
Yeah.
And it just went, why did it go? Is it because they don't exist, or is it because the government doesn't want you to know they exist? I'm still there, though.
I got to ask Roman, have you seen the footage of the, I want to say it's Apollo 19 or Apollo 20 footage of going to the moon?
I've seen some of that.
That's a couple more Apollos than existed, so I'm kind of curious about that.
That's a whole nother show.
I know. I'm just asking. I'll send you some stuff.
I haven't seen that. I have not.
I'll send you some stuff.
That's the one with the guy with the gun to the back of the head saying it always has been, right? That's that one.
No, it's not that. But I'll send it to you.
Please do.
if anyone's curious, a lot of discussions on this show are going to be about the paranormal, the weird, R2 story about Apollo 19, other things. So again, if you're new to the channel, that's basically what's going to happen here, and that's why it's cool to talk about this guy. And I'm going to pull a lot from him and inspiration. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun ride as I do this. Now, you said you liked his voice. His voice was like very unique, right? So if you were to hear him even today, you would automatically say, that's Art Bell. Is there anyone else in the radio sphere that like you can do that with? Besides, can you think of anyone else that comes to mind that you're like, oh yeah, that's so and so?
I don't think anyone really listens to radio anymore and stuff. It's all about the podcast now. Radio's has gone down the drain.
Old man Roman does.
I'm 187 years old though, so I'm not necessarily the best demographic.
I guess what I'm asking today, like if
you're going to take Casey Kasem,
Casey Kasem would be one.
That's a great example of a voice on the radio that everyone today will recognize because
I would say today Howard Stern still has a pretty distinct voice.
He does, and then you have Joe Rogan. You have Joe Rogan too. You when you hear him,
I couldn't tell you what Rogan sounds like though. I know he exists. I've actually seen his show, but Bell, there was something. It's interesting because he had that deep kind of just very calming voice as he was talking, and it was always right here. He never went here. And he never dropped. It was just always right here.
Yeah, it was very
like
smooth.
Sometimes he'd get frustrated with Richard Hoagland, and he'd be like, "Richard, hurry up! Get to the bottom of this." He's like, "I need to lay the groundwork hard." And because it was at night, and because the show was like 4 or 5 hours or whatever, you get into this kind of, it's not quite hypnotism, but your brain waves get synced up with him, and you get in tune with him.
Slap happy.
Well, here's the other thing too. He started, I want to say he got his first amateur radio operator license at 13 years old.
There you go.
From the stuff I've looked up, and
wow, for
somebody that's been doing it that long, he had to be professional at it by the time he got all the way to coast.
Yeah, and,
I mean, that's deep.
You have to have some practice to do that. And he was live every night on point, so it was really cool.
Well,
go ahead, R2.
Real quick, you can attest to this. I am a big fan of old shortwave radios, and you can't see them, but behind me, where my head is, there's another shelf, and I've got a ton of them. And in fact, I have so many. I brought one to JT a couple months ago when I went to visit him. And kind of that love came through Art Bell, just because he would always talk about, right, CC Crane. If you don't have a CC Crane radio.
I remember that. But I wanted to buy one of those things.
Advertise that. Yes. And funny, prior to me getting involved with YouTube, I was this close to actually buying a ham radio and going to get my license and getting an antenna. And I was gonna mess with that. And then I saw somebody doing a movie review, and I'm like, oh, I love movies. Now I'm here.
Well, I mean, you have some Orson Welles radio shows out there that are really good.
You know what? That's another good example of a classic voice that is immediately recognizable. Yeah.
So that's great. And like I said, I think that's, if they have a good voice like that, then it makes people want to listen even more, right? And like I said, he was very calming, even when the crazy people called in. Because there was some times where he was like, "Hey, where are you? like, are you okay? Like, let's talk about you for a moment." Now, Subtle Deviancy said the FCC told me to never even think about getting on radio light.
That's
Okay.
probably safest. Subtle. Absolutely. Yes. I would agree with the FCC on this one.
Now we're gonna go over our next one is about the Bigfoot hunters. We're gonna get right into one of his stories, and this is one of my favorites. And these were one of the favorites from one of you all too that you submitted. And I was very excited when because I did ask all of you, hey, what was one of your favorite moments? We'll try to fit what we can in. And this one came up, and I was very excited because this is another one that I like. So this was about a story that was a very compelling segment that came in around June 5th, 2001. Art Bell delved into a captivating world of Bigfoot alongside seasoned researcher Robert W. Morgan. He was a big-time Bigfoot researcher at the time. Their discussions featured the gripping testimony of a hunter known as Bugs. That's a name, right? Who encountered re-encountered a chilling encounter in Texas over 30 years ago. So when this came out, this was 2001. So I would say that'd be 1970 something. I'm guessing.
70s. Yeah.
Bugs and his companions unwittingly shot and killed two mysterious beings, later revealed to be a male and female Bigfoot. The versatile description painted a haunting portrait of these enigmatic creatures. Robert provided further analysis, exploring the implications of Bigfoot phenomenon from tales from other potential evidence and sacrifice. So we're going to listen to two of these audio clips where he is talking to this gentleman, and I can't wait for y'all to hear this. This is going to be fun. So
come around this bend and come up over this rise, and there was a wheat field out in front of us, and just before we crossed this creek, and
this is R2's grandfather, by the way.
There's a valley down in there, and there's probably I'd say it's has wheat land right there. There's probably a quarter mile or so wide from that road to the creek, and it's probably about a mile long. It runs alongside that creek, and it's flat and has that. And we come around this bend and up and over a little hill and dropped into this valley. Well, just as we dropped into this valley, our lights picked up a set of eyes. And I hit the brakes. I was driving, and Bird Dog, he come out on the side. He had a 300 Weatherby Magnum, and he come across the top. I said, what you got? And he says, I don't know. That ain't something I ever seen before. Well,
how terrifying would that be if you're a hunter and you hunt all the time, and then you come across something that you've never maybe encountered before? That's pretty scary.
Who the hell is Bird Dog?
It's funny.
So
when you said a set of eyes, did you mean 2 eyes or 4?
2 eyes.
2 eyes.
2 eyes.
What color were they, Bugs, if you don't mind?
They were furious red. The reddest eyes I've ever seen in my life.
This is really? Bugs talking
under those lights. It was something we knew it wasn't a deer because of the eyes, and it was something. And so I pulled my rifle out. I used a .243. I put my scope on it, and I could see whatever it was crouching. And so Bird Dog, he got out and leaned over the hood of the pickup where he could get him a good shot. And Jim, he come up over the top of the cab, and I don't even remember what kind of, I think he was using a .270. I don't remember for sure. But he lined up over the cab, and I was sitting there, and we just had both these spotlights on this varmint there. And I said, I don't know what it is, and they don't either. And I said, well, it sure ain't nothing we know about it. Let's take it. And all three of us fired at the same time. And all of a sudden, this thing got up, and it must have been 7, 8 foot tall at least. I don't know. Scared the heck out of us. Started running. And well, we all loaded, and we fired again. We knocked it down again. And then it run, I guess, it was probably 100, maybe 150 yards from the point we fired the first time till it hit the fence and went into that creek. And we knocked it down. It's probably 25, 30 yards from the fence.
It fell into a creek.
No, not at this point. And just as it was crossing the creek, we hit it again.
Now, was it running on 4 legs or 2?
It was running
I love Art his companion Robert Art's companion talking here. He has some of the greatest comments, so you just keep an eye out for them.
On two legs, just like a human being, and I mean it was
Right, so it was running on two legs. It's
Right.
something you've never seen before, but you three guys cut down on it.
Well, we had done shot, and we did not know what it was. It was hunched over. It really wasn't using its front legs. I mean, its arms, as much as it was. It wasn't standing up straight. We still thought it was what I thought it was at first. To be honest with you, was a bear.
Yeah.
And that's why we fired.
All right, so you had three of you fired initially, right?
And
So
we
you-
all fired 3 times.
So you
You guys are all non-vets, right?
Right.
And so you've had night combat, I'm sure.
Right.
Okay, so you have something getting up on two legs and running away, and you still cut down on it. Okay, all right, I have the picture. Go ahead, please.
Okay. But like I said, I originally thought it was a bear. I did not even, I had
Bears
no
don't run
idea.
away.
We had done fired on it at the point in time that it was sitting out there.
I'm
And,
waiting for a Bigfoot picture to
Once,
show up.
once
Can
we
only say on
fired,
it.
I don't know, I guess we just got a little bit.
I didn't get the
gung-ho
rights for
and
cannoli.
kept shooting. But anyway, the second time we shot it, went over the fence. Well, we went and looked, and at this point in time, we were all getting scared because we thought, well, maybe this wasn't an animal.
Right.
So, like I say, it was probably 3, 4, 5 in the morning, so we decided to drive around a while. About 5:36, we went back over there, and we drove up there, and we went down, and we seen blood. So, we've seen some tracks. Looked like a human foot, and to be honest with you, I thought, now we done shot a human.
That's terrifying. If you're in the woods and you're hunting and you think you shot somebody and you thought you were shooting an animal, that's pretty terrifying. Go ahead.
It is
I'll throw in
terrifying.
the caveat that if you see something running on two legs, don't shoot it. It's this is me being safe.
Okay.
I mean, it could be a hobo for all you know.
Yeah, and
I mean, to be fair and stuff, I think he may have confused Bigfoot with my mother.
Yeah, I'm getting scared. So we go on up and start following these tracks, and the creek runs from this point probably 50, 75 yards east, and then it turns back south some. Well, these tracks are going down the creek, and they come out, and they went straight on east from where the creek turned back south. About another 25, 30 yards, there was a plum thicket. And we were walking there, and we heard something in that plum thicket. I mean, it was a growl-type sound. And we kind of looked at each other, and so we decided, well, who goes in and see what it was?
a growl.
Yeah, and again, at this point, we thought, well, it's a bear. We done found a bear up here.
So just in a few seconds, you're going to hear something that he has on file, Art Bell, of a scream.
So, I got elected. I had a 44 Magnum pistol. I climbed into the plum thickets, and I got in, probably 20 feet at the most. And Art, this thing come up at me. I mean, it couldn't have been over, I'd say, 6 or 7 feet from me. I didn't even see it until it was there. And it raised up and let out a sound that is very similar to the one you have on your tape. And when it did,
You're talking about, as he grabs for it, this one, I presume. Anything like that?
yeah, just the first one, not a repeat, just a
Yeah, that first scream is said to be an authentic Bigfoot sound. Robert?
Yeah, that's what they say. I have never heard them scream like that. I've heard them howl, I've heard them hoot, and I've heard them talk. But I've never...
You've never heard a scream like that?
No. Oh, well, First of all, I've never challenged them, so they don't perceive me as a threat of any sort, so they wouldn't try to.
Understood.
Try to do that.
All right. So anyway, Bugs, it sounded something like that.
It's something similar to just the first part. It didn't go on and on. It's just one shrill.
Right.
And I'm basically.
What do you think that was? Like that actual sound? You think that was like
I don't know.
There was like a lot of reverb going on with
there.
that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in that. It could have been like a German metal band. We don't know.
Sounds like the sound we used to make out of those toy microphones.
Rammstein was playing in the woods. Is what
But I mean, I hate to break it to you all, but that's just the sound of my mom's stomach.
Fellas, it's clearly a chupacabra.
And I just brought my
you're not far from the truth.
Started popping shells. And the first one I hit, the first one hit it. I just aimed right
shooting
at
at
its chest.
Describe what this thing, since you were seeing it now full on, what did it look like?
Oh.
Best you can.
At that point,
6 feet tall.
probably, but it was not standing up, Art, at that point. It was more in a hunched, squat-type position.
All right.
I mean, it come up.
Would you describe this as human-looking, as ape-looking? Did it have hair covering it? What can you tell us about it?
It had brownish red hair. It had hair on the face, completely covering the face. Its whole body was covered with hair. At that point, I just fired. It dropped down, started back up. I fired again, and it then kind of rocked and went backwards, and it come back up, and I fired again. I hit it 3 times with a 225 grain 44 Magnum hollow point, to probably 6 to 8 feet, and it was down. Well, the other guys were standing guard up on top watching, and they couldn't see nothing. They heard me firing, and they yelled if I was all right, and I said, yeah, I got it. Well, they came crawling in there and where I was at, and they seen it, so we decided we'd drag it out. We got to looking, and all this thing had was 3 holes. And this was a female. You could tell it had breasts similar to a woman.
How many
It had a
holes on the female?
similar to a woman.
3.
Facial features were different than a human being.
3.
Like I say, it was covered completely in hair.
He's not a
We went
biologist.
back in and we found the male
3
probably,
holes.
I'd say, 8-10 foot behind where she was at. He was dead.
He was dead.
Yeah. So we drug him out. We laid him out side by side. The male was probably 6 to 8 inches taller than the female. Estimating the male to probably be 8 foot plus, female 7 plus. So we looked at him. We got scared because, in the male, he had sexual organs like a human. We looked at their teeth. They were not human type teeth. I can't say that they were an ape. I can't say that they were a human. They looked. They had the features of a human overall, but the details were not.
So that's the first part of that call.
All right, I gotta say something real quick.
Yeah.
In the great words of Bruce Campbell, shoot first, ask questions later. That seems to be the theme of this.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I saw movement and I started firing.
Guys, to Home Depot, if you've seen the people at the Home Depot, you start shooting at them, and then you figure out what's going to happen.
Do you remember this show at all? Anyone remember this one?
I remember this show. And fellas, you forget.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
It gets better. There's a whole other part to this. There's a part 2 to this, and it gets a lot better. This is one of my favorite shows. I wanted to make sure I spent a good time on it, but it is quite interesting.
I will say though, this guy's from the era of like, you go fishing and you're drinking beer, you just fill up your cans, let them sink to the bottom, keep everything clean, shoot every animal you see. Don't need a license for it. Yeah. You have one license. It covers everything. Shoot all you want. Where like nowadays you're like, oh crap, I shot one too many things. I'm terrified. You know,
Yeah,
the ranger's going to show up.
In the second part of this call, you get to hear how the difference between how old this gentleman is. Like you really get to understand. Like he's from a different world, like a different whole different world. Because Robert is asking him questions that he's like, what? Like completely. This guy lives.
Robert is funny though, because Robert's like the straight man. He's like, so it walked on two legs, but you continued to shoot. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Mhm.
Roman, it had red eyes.
Has red eyes. It was hunched over.
So does my wife.
Oh my god! All right, here's the second part of that, and like I said, it gets even better.
I'd like to know. They've got a 5-year-old listening, and they want to know really what these creatures look like. Now, you said not exactly human, not exactly total animal, like something in between. Is there any way you can describe the facial features of these creatures? It should be imprinted on your memory.
Yeah, Art. No, because I've never seen nothing on this earth that looks like them. Their heads, they have a nose similar to a human.
Okay.
Their mouths appear to be more ape. Their eyes are sunken back in their head more than human. I mean, I think if you take a human and cross it with a ape, you could probably come up with a reasonable facsimile of it.
Okay.
You know what I might suggest, Art, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Bugs, after we go off the air, if you would give Art your mailing address, which
Art has my mailing address, he has my phone numbers, he has everything.
Okay, what I'd like to do is...
Robert, let me just interrupt. I've promised him anonymity, and we'll explain why here shortly.
Now that's how nice he was to guests, right? He would tell them, look, if you don't want your name out, I won't give it out. And he shows this here in this clip. I think that's pretty cool.
No. What I meant by what I mean is, what I'd do is send a copy to you, Art, and have you forward it to Bugs. The idea is this. Now, on the cover of that is one of the best artist renderings I've ever seen because I sat with the artist myself.
On the cover of what?
On the cover of the cassette that I have.
Of a cassette? Oh, of your cassette, all right.
Right, and that way, what I'd like to do is get a reaction from Bugs and he can tell that to you. That's number one. Number two, can I ask you something, Bugs? What kind of soil were these two buried in? Was it sandy? Was it dirt?
This part of the country is sandy loam, and it was it wasn't silk sand, but it was a sandy loam in that particular place where we buried them. It was more of a gravel type sand because it was. It did have some rock in it because that creek was probably, from the point we buried them, the creek kind of went south, about probably 150, 200 yards, and then it turned back east, and over the period of time when we had a lot of high rains in this part of the country, it would wash silt and such in there.
Are you saying that the creek would overflow into this specific area?
Yes.
Oh boy. Because that'll cause a different type of decomposition. Did you take a GPS reading?
A what?
Probably not, Robert. I would say not. A GPS.
Oh, no, I don't have one of them animals.
Yeah.
Okay, if we supplied one, would you take the readings and send those to Art?
Well, he's given me an extremely specific map. Oh, okay. Very, very specific.
I mean, that map is detailed down.
Yeah.
To the foot.
You would know where to dig. Listen.
To be honest with you, this happened 30-plus years ago, and I have not been out there since.
Bugs, when you had these things lying on the ground, what did you guys talk about, and why did you decide to bury them?
We thought they could be human, Art. and we didn't want to go to jail.
Jesus Christ.
What you just described is Yeah, I understand. In other words, there were
But
enough
whenever you're
human.
sitting there and you're looking at the sexual organs of two animals that's got identical to human beings, what do you think?
Robert, with what you know about Bigfoot, do they have sexual organs? The reports you get, do they have sexual organs similar to humans?
Oh yes, yes.
They do.
So far, everything that Bugs has mentioned is something that I've observed myself. So yes.
Oh.
He's right on the nose.
I've seen many genitalia of a Bigfoot.
Have you ever seen, Bugs, any of the Bigfoot photos, like the Patterson film, any of those that exist?
Not,
you haven't?
No.
Would somebody please send me a good Bigfoot photograph right away?
I'm on the computer. I can't look at it.
Well, it's too bad our website isn't up because we have all of them on there.
Oh, you do?
Yes, and unfortunately it's under reconstruction right at the moment.
Okay, well, somebody will send us a photograph. Depend on that. In the next 15 minutes or so, we'll try and get it up for the next hour.
Again,
this is 2001.
Detail as to the location of this to tease the people out there.
All right.
The biggest river in the state of Texas that I guess you might say is the Red River. This Elm Creek is a branch off of the Red River of the state of Texas.
Okay. That's the only sound. Actually, you heard that scream sound, but other than that, you heard a growling. What you would describe as
Art, I don't know whether it was a growling or a rustling or something, but something got our attention in those bushes.
Now, when they moved, you said they moved on 2 feet, or seemed to walk on 2 feet, hunched over or straight up?
It was hunched over. To be honest with you, when it was running, it looked like a bear. When it was running away from us, it looked like a bear, and I'm thinking dollar signs. That's why I fired.
He was probably pretty badly injured by your first fusillade. And what he was doing, I think, is, number one, escaping. Number two, he was going to the protection, hopefully, of his mate. And the mate may have picked him up and carried him to where you caught him.
I don't know that happened. It's possible because there was grass where he came out of that creek and headed east there.
Mm-hmm.
Maurice in Modesto, California asks, if you were hunting for money, why didn't you all decide to bring these creatures back for a hell of a profit? They'd be worth a fortune.
Yeah, and maybe go to jail for the rest of your life, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fellow in Modesto is overlooking the fact that if these are humanoids, then under the American Constitution, they have civil rights, and Bugs is indeed correct. He could be charged with manslaughter at least.
You know what? By the time we did the original show, by the time we finished the original show, Bugs was actually going to invite me out there, and we were going to dig these bodies up.
Good.
This was years ago.
I said I'd show you, Art. I ain't digging them up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I own a farm near this place.
Yes, sir.
And Art, I won't go out there at night because about, a year or so ago, I was out there late one evening with my dogs. They love to go out and swim in the creek. And I heard that sound, and Art, I know they still want out there, and to be honest with you, I think they're looking for me.
Oh, my Lord.
There's a John Wick Sasquatch after him now.
Oh my God!
There you go. That was.
I never heard that show before. That was incredible.
You can listen to the you can listen to the full show. The links are all in the description of all this stuff. You can listen to the full show if you want.
I was going to say,
I might have committed murder at least twice, and then I looked at the bodies. I thought, well, that might be human. I'm going to bury it, and then I'm not going to tell anybody about it 30 years. And then I'm going to say it was Bigfoot. And that, I think, is a pretty good plan. It sounds, does it sound reasonable to you? You stop that with your cousin.
There's two other people involved, right?
I saw the red eyes. I saw the red eyes.
Now, the guest of the Bigfoot researcher does get a little, like, Greta Thunberg on him a few times.
He does,
though.
yes.
It's very, like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
Now-
know. Did y'all ever listen to the follow-up show to this
Still my
one?
childhood.
Yeah, there are a few. Like I said, if you there's links in the descriptions, you can listen to more of it. But
that was solid. Man.
what's funny is this is one of my favorite episodes, and I remember it. And I haven't listened to it in a long time. But I re-listened to it. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's just the way where he's describing. It's literally like 30 minutes from my house. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should go Bigfoot hunting. Just make sure I don't shoot anybody.
JT texted me, how many shovels do you have and how soon can you get to my house?
I mean, you're right, Rick. Rick, you've drove to my house. You know,
Yeah.
like East Texas. He was describing literally my backyard, and I'm like, oh, great. So I thought that was fascinating. But there you go. That was the Bigfoot one. But yeah, they're out there looking for him. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Now there's another one out there
We'll just
that
bring something bigger than a 44 Magnum.
this
go
one's
looking
great.
for him.
there's another one out there that kind of frightened a lot of people.
Oh my God, yeah.
And this is the Area 51 call. Now we get into one of the
Yep.
most iconic moments in his career, the infamous Area 51. So most of you have probably heard this. This came out on September 11th, 1997, oddly enough. During a broadcast of Coast to Coast AM, Art Bell received a call from a frantic man who claimed to be a former Area 51 employee. Now, Pahrump is not very far from Area 51, by the way. I think it's a couple miles. The caller identified only as Victor, detailing chilling accounts of extraterrestrial encounters and covert government activities from the secret base. So we're gonna, and this just sparked a whole other fan base for him when he did this in 1997. I was not aware of this. Like, I know that I've listened to this before, but I never heard this live. I don't know if any of you did, but we're definitely going to listen to this one and hold on to your seats for this one.
Hey, JT.
Yeah.
I got to ask you. I've made a video clip of this.
You have?
Of the call.
Yeah.
Can I share it?
Well, I've got something else, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Can I share at the end of the stream?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
What are you trying to hide? Yeah, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to suppress?
Did you kill a Bigfoot? That's what I want to know.
Like I said, there's a reason I'm the master. That's all.
Oh, he made a special clip of this. You can share it later. How about
Of course. That's our guy.
I forgot you did that, by the way, but yes. Here we go. So this is the 51 call.
Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens are they're extra dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military. I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
He's losing connection, and then the radio stops. The radio station actually loses transmission.
It's the government, or
I don't know.
And now
something to know.
a new caller
Did you
came
hear-
online.
Now you tell me because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off.
Yeah, real weirded out.
Like going, sort of sounding paranoid, schizophrenic,
like crying and everything.
Yeah. And how far into the conversation was it when it went off?
Just about 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys missed. You really missed the call then, and I've got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
Yeah. Because it was really strange. All of a sudden, I'm hearing Mark Furman, and when I
That's right. Well, the
listening
network, of course, went immediately to a backup tape while we tried to figure out what blew up here. So that's what you heard happen. And then we're now on a backup link system to be on the air at all right now. So, well, I'm telling you.
Am I on the air right now?
You're on the air right now. Well, you better be, yes.
And
where are you, by the way?
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, I called the other night, and I wanted to ask two things.
Real quick.
Well, I wanted to say one thing, and I wanted to ask another.
Real quick.
I wanted to ask if you could play that remote viewing one when you were while you go to Egypt.
Yes.
And also, I wanted to know all this stuff about like Area 51, if it's like the government's trying to put it out there like that, so like some other place isn't being watched as much.
In other words, it's a big decoy. I see what you're saying here, and apparently we'll be back after the news.
So that was one of the most famous callers.
I actually don't think the Area 51 caller was as crazy as people may have thought he was.
Right, but some people have come back to say that actually was a hoax. So
there was another one.
Of course they
There was
would.
another
That's like the Bigfoot guy was clearly not a hoax. He just didn't kill people. No, but there. It sounded like there was something there. The interdimensional dwellers. That's so. What a lot of us think now is what we call aliens are demons. So that's where this guy may have been so freaked out from. So, and again, I know we're dealing with it. We're dealing with this topic, semi lightly, but some things break through. Who knows? The second caller didn't sound like they gave a crap at all. They were like, "Hey, that guy sounded like he was a nutbag. Hey, let's talk about this instead."
Can you send me your Egypt posters?
That sounded like.
Remember that time you thought you were over Egypt? That was cool.
Now, apparently, they had a whole conversation. They kept going, and like I said, the transmission was lost, and that's not recorded. Nothing. They were just talking, and I did splice out that audio a little bit. It was a good, I don't know, a few minutes.
So you're saying that there's no full audio of that conversation whatsoever?
Not after the transmission loss. No.
So I was listening to that show live back in the day, and everybody was calling in talking about that guy because of the sound of his voice and how panicked he was. And here's what I recall. Maybe a week or two later, a guy who may have been that guy or may have been impersonating that guy called back and broke kayfabe about halfway through the call, and then it kind of just fell apart. Now, maybe it was the guy, and the first call was just him kind of putting one over on Art, or maybe it was an elaborate plan to discredit the initial call. But that people were calling talking about that guy. For quite a while. It was a big deal.
Well, and there was another incident with Area 51 where he had a fax come in, and it was a girlfriend of a guy that was going to fly a plane over Area 51 at night.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he played the whole thing over his cell phone, talking to Art Bell over the radio.
Yeah.
Yep. That is a hilarious call because the guy is like trying to steer the plane and talk, and Art's like, turn around, go back. They're going to shoot you down, and that was a great call as well. That was a great.
You can't fly over Area 51.
No.
Just in case anybody wants to do that, you can't do that. You're flying over a military installation, and that's not.
I was going to say, do you guys
not
remember?
Good. As a former member of the military, I seem to remember this kind of stuff.
Remember a couple of years ago when the person created the invite on Facebook to storm Area 51.
Yeah, run in there like Naruto or something.
Yeah. All the hipsters showed up.
Yeah.
They're like they can't stop us all.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Legally, they can.
They're like, have you ever
They
heard of a
actually
minigun?
It's not hard. Yeah, you guys are freaking meat suits. It's not hard.
Yeah, there's a nice little sign right there that says you lose all your rights once you.
It does.
pass
He
this
doesn't know.
line.
Yeah, I've seen the sign. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, you can't go past this point, or we will use deadly force. So,
Yeah.
Don't do that, please.
So there is a website out there, coast2coast.com. You can listen to some of these there. There's other, if you just look up Internet Archive, you can find of it. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them pretty much. So if you want to listen more about that show, you can.
Yeah, and then, like I was saying earlier, JT, Spotify has the entire archive of all the Art Bell shows.
Yeah, so
just
anything we're
look up
showing
Art Bell,
here,
go.
and you're like, ooh, I want to go listen to more, you can go there and listen. Because I do have 2 more things. Now, he had his own UFO encounter.
Yes.
Over by his house. So Art Bell had his own encounter. So most people, they do paranormal, or they've never experienced anything to themselves, but he did. As we cover more of Art Bell's active involvement in the realm of unexplained, his first-hand encounter with a black triangle UFO, and that's the ones with the 3 lights, and it kind of hovers across the sky. Shared bravely with his audience, added deeply personal. Now, I couldn't, for whatever reason, and maybe it's because I didn't really dig deep enough, I could not find the audio part where he described this, but I did find a video with him and his wife, because he experienced this with his wife. So this is what we're going.
Yes. Yeah, they both saw it. They both saw it.
deeply
Yeah, he talked about it very in depth.
He did. Not so much on this video. For whatever reason, I could not find it, but this one he does kind of talk about. You can see it in his eyes that
Art Bell and his wife Ramona say they encountered something from out there in 1994.
We were on the way home from Las Vegas, about a half mile from where we're standing at the moment.
I just happened to look out the rear view mirror and just saw something coming up from behind us, and it looked like it wasn't
Normal.
And I kept saying, what the hell is that?
And this thing floated above our heads, doing about 30 miles
That's a good
an hour.
word, float. Yeah.
Floated, yeah, it floated. Or had to have been defying gravity, or it was a lighter than aircraft. I don't know. But it was triangular. It was monstrous. The moon and the stars went away, and there it was above us. And we stood and watched it go across the valley and head toward the mountains.
Art Bell and his wife were alone, but there have been UFO sightings with hundreds, even thousands of eyewitnesses.
I remember this. Most people
Phoenix,
do
Arizona, March the
Arizona.
13th, 1997.
There were some incredible sightings over Phoenix called the Phoenix Lights, and they occurred while I was doing my program. I took call after call after call of people in Phoenix saying, "Oh my God, what's flying over our city?"
At 8:30 p.m. that night, hundreds of people reported seeing a mysterious flying something.
So there you go. Something flying through the sky. Now it's got to be out there somewhere where you can find the full clip of him getting in deep depth.
No, and well, he speaks about it very in depth, because he talks about it being very low to the ground. He says he can see the metal structures above him, basically, but it's dark. It's just it's a dark mass flying over, and with no sound.
He did mention about the moon disappearing, which would be weird.
It covered everything that was flying that was in front of him, and but he said it was a massive ship. It wasn't like it's not airplane size. It's a massive ship that's moving silently and not very far above the ground, and very slowly, just kind of drifting over. And it freaked him out a lot.
And a lot of people,
he's talked about it several times.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they describe a UFO, a lot of them describe that. They describe it some triangle object that's. And when I think I was in Phoenix when the lights happened, and I do remember people saying they were kind of in like a line, but they were also kind of like somewhat in a triangle in some way. So I do remember that too. People were freaking out that they still
I remember
do
that
today.
happened as well.
Yeah,
that was and that was like one of the largest mass media captured events.
they couldn't
that
hide
we've
it
ever
because
had.
everybody was like,
Nope.
Can you
That was-
imagine
that was
today if
huge.
people had cell phones? Like,
Even the
wow.
governor, right, came out with an alien. Like, we caught the culprit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made a joke about it. That's almost how you know it was an event, because he had to make the joke about it was an event. Hey, look what I found! Ha 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 ha!
Yeah, so the country did the Marshall Plan to reverse engineer German technology confiscated after WW2. So this could be a similar.
That was Operation Paperclip, by the way. It's not the Marshall Plan. In case
Fun
anyone's
fact: Kurt Russell, the actor, was the first guy to call. Yes, he was, because he lived on the mountain. There's a mountain called Camelback Mountain, and he lived in a mansion there, and he saw it. He called it in.
Was he like his old Jack Burton?
No.
The Pork Chop Express. I got.
I know
something
Jack
for
Burton
you.
always says, if you see the lights in the sky, it's probably aliens.
I was gonna say, watching that video, I'm like, Art Bell kind of looks like Ned Flanders if he didn't find Jesus.
He had a distinct look to him. He did. I believe that was his first wife. In that video.
That's Ramona.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's not next wife for Dark Matters.
Yeah, and it's great that they both experienced it, I guess, right? So he has someone to kind of to look. See, I wasn't.
No, and like I said, he talked about that. He talked about that event on more than one occasion, because they would talk about other UFO events, and then if something similar came up, he would like, that's what I saw.
And I think that's why it's hard to
triangle.
find like a real solid clip of that, because he talked about it a lot, and you would have to find a bunch of different episodes. So, but anyways, that would be pretty. At least he had something to share with his audience, and I don't know if I would do it if I found a.
Well, he didn't do that a lot about personal stuff. He never really shared. He didn't like, I myself have seen shadow people. I myself have seen Bigfoot. He shared that event. That's the only one that I know of in the entire archive of Art Bell. There was something that was very personal to him.
So do you think it was real because of that?
I think he saw something. And of course, you can't speak to what someone else saw, but I think I do believe he saw something.
I mean, he could have worked us up and said, "Hey, I've seen Sasquatch. I've seen all this other stuff too." But he only ever talks about that one thing that he ever saw.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You kind of have to.
That does lend credibility to his story.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was when he went to the Great Pyramid, and he sat in the sarcophagi, and he said that he had like a out of body experience, and everything was like resonating and vibrating. That's the only other time where he personally shared
I think Lambertsy's on a UFO. He's taking off.
Wait, what? Huh?
We can hear you typing, sir.
Oh, my bad. I didn't know if you're going to share the meme I sent and stuff.
What
so
Stargate address are you
tweet it
going
out.
We'll show it at the end of the show. Around the end of the show, we'll show it around the end of the show. But yeah, it was pretty interesting that he got to see himself, because there's people out there now like that are on the Travel Channel talking about their experiences, and
they got the big hair and they're talking about ancient aliens.
But the History Channel.
But even like the ghost guys,
I hate the ghost guys.
I
hate
like everything.
Every ghost guy. Every single one of them I despise, because they come across as being these genuine whatever, but they are all hucksters. They are.
They
sell you a thing, and they're selling you a thing. They're all rich because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said earlier there was never like a dud Art Bell episode, but I will say the reverse speech guys, those were hard to get through sometimes.
Remember those? Okay, I may retract my statement. I don't remember the reverse speech guys. Like when you turn the album backwards.
It was like that, but they would record a speech, and they'd take a recording of Clinton professing his innocence, and then they play it back. Yes, sir. And it would be like, you see, saying he likes to kiss her, reverse speech, and it was maybe like 4 or 5 episodes where the reverse speech technician would present to Art.
Satan doesn't have time for that. He's busy doing other stuff right now.
I really thought you were going to be like, it said, I had sexual relations.
I can define what it means. What is.
My DNA on blue dress.
You should do that on YouTube. All right, so we have one more.
DNA on my cigar.
Before we have one more story to go
Oh,
over
Mel's
tonight.
Hole. Mel's
So
Hole
this
is
is
fantastic.
one that R2 provided for me. Unfortunately, we cannot play the entire show. I'm going to just play a little clip of it because it is a 3-hour discussion about a hole in the ground that goes to nowhere. So yeah, we're going to go over the story of Mel's Hole, stemming from a notable call to Coast AM with Art Bell on February 21st, 1997. The caller, self-identified as Mel Waters, described a alleged bottomless pit near his home in Ellensburg, Washington. And he said it had, paranormal properties. His tale stepped into mystery and intrigue, promotes questions about his authenticity about it, the fate of Mel Waters, and the existence of similar phenomenon in the area. So we're going to go ahead and listen to this. Again, this is not the full episode because we would be here for hours, but this is just quite a little bit of the conversation.
Mel on the line. Mel's the guy with the never-ending hole, and we're going to ask him about it here in a moment.
Phrasing, Art.
I have read that fax now twice on the air.
Look, there's
and
eyes
I've got a
in
lot
there.
of follow-up faxes. Here's
We
one
always had
entitled,
one.
Yet Another Mystery Hole in Eastern Washington. Art, you'll love this. It was sent to me a couple of days ago by email, and it's all about another one on the Indian Reservation in Colville, where there is another mystery hole. Anyway, we'll get to that. Now to Eastern Washington. I guess this is Eastern Washington. Mel, are you there?
Yes, I am.
First of all, Mel, thank you for answering. What are you doing up at this time of the morning?
Well, after I sent the fax, I'm living in town here now because we had a couple of our buildings out there cave in after the big snows that we had out here last month.
Oh, yes.
And so thereby goes some of the construction debris into the hole. So,
all right. When did you discover this hole?
Well, the hole has always been there. We've been out there for a couple of years now, and the hole has been there since we've been there. It's been there since the previous owner was there, and the previous owner there was quite elderly, and I'd say he was there for a good 30, 40 years before we moved in.
Wow.
And then
and so there's been a thing of throwing stuff down this hole for a long time.
It's been going on, for as long as the hole has been there, I assume.
When nobody knows that, I guess. All right. How do you pronounce the name of your town, Manastash?
Manastash.
Manastash.
Right.
That's right. Thank you.
And actually, I'm in right now. I'm in a little town called Ellensburg.
Oh, I know Ellensburg. All right.
You must know about a rodeo here, then.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, so we've been there for several years, and we just take all of our trash, rubbish, anything we have that we have to get rid of. We take it, throw it in the hole. Everyone's throwing their stuff in the hole. The people from around there throw all the stuff in the hole. I mean, it's this thing going on for a long time. Well, I got this thinking one day, how come this hole is not filling up? It must be an awfully deep hole.
That's a good thing to consider, sure, as you throw stuff in it for decades, literally.
And so, I used to be I would say pretty close to a professional shark fisherman. So I had a couple of huge fishing reels, went out there and started letting the line down. I figure after one...
Did you weight the line?
Oh, yeah. There's in fact, the original line is still down there. I've just been
That's
adding
pretty
to
smart,
the
by the
line
way.
and keeping track of how much line I have used. So I've not reeled it in.
How much weight is on it?
There's a 1 pound weight at the bottom of it.
1 pound weight, all
1
right.
pound weight. It's a triangular 1 pound weight.
Okay.
And so that's at the bottom of it at first.
So in other words, it would go down kind of like a plumb bob.
Exactly. In fact, I have it rigged across the center of it there, and it goes straight down from the center there. And occasionally I try to move the line there, but when you're moving that much line, you really can't do a whole lot with it. But it seems to, there seems to be, it's not resting against anything at this point here, and it continues to go down freely. And so when I was out there earlier, I let out a little bit more line. And
so you actually went out there tonight after I read this?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
Well, it's not too bad out here right now. It's only about 25 degrees, so it's not too cold.
Have you ever heard anything coming from any sounds or anything?
Well, I mean, the normal thing to do is kind of like yell into it there, to see an echo, and I've never heard an echo come out of that thing.
No echo
at all. That's one of the first things I noticed about it. As usual, I brought the dogs with me. They wouldn't go anywhere near the damn thing, and I went back to the Suburban and hung out over there. So it was kind of, if I try to bring them there on a leash, they'll just dig their feet in. They do not want to go anywhere near the hole. I don't know.
Telling.
It's just,
well, you've got miles and miles of,
yeah, I think, I'm measuring it by feet. I convert feet to yards, so I don't know how many miles that is. I assume it's a fair number of miles, though.
Well, 5,280 feet is a mile, so you really think you've got 80,000?
Yes, yeah, I get line in 5,000 yard spools, and so I've gone through that many.
Well, you have got a hole then that goes, well, you can't say to the center of the earth, but you've got a hole that goes miles and miles and miles into the earth. I would think a university would be out there, boom, just like that.
Well, my wife does work for a local university here, and, we've been talking to them about it, and one of the things is they find it quite incredible that I've let that much line into the ground, but that's what I've been doing.
Have you ever thought of winding it all back up again?
Well, when I let out the first 1,500 yards of line, I reeled all of that back in.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know if I had hit water down there, because I thought that's a lot of feet.
You bet.
That's 4,500 feet of line. Did I hit water? So I did. What I did is I sent down a roll of lifesavers.
Lifesavers?
Yeah. So when it hits the water, the lifesavers will dissolve.
That's true. Oh, I see. So very smart. So
yeah, it's an old shark fisherman's trick. There, we used to send our bait out on a balloon attached to a roll of lifesavers, and the bait would go out into the ocean on the tide.
Yeah.
And then eventually the lifesavers would melt, and the bait would fall to the bottom. You couldn't cast a big old mackerel out there that far. So
that's amazing. So, what do you got any guesses?
I don't. I have no idea. I thought it could have been a mine shaft, but the thing about it is the surface part of it's been very well cared for. I mean, someone built a very lovely wall around it. And
all right, tell me about the nature of the side of the walls. In other words, you must be able to look down far enough, at least, to examine the side of the walls.
Sure, it's stone for about 15 feet down.
Yeah,
and then after that, it's soil, dirt, and then further down rock. So, but I can only see to the extent of, really powerful flashlight. I brought halogen lights out there to try to get a better look down there, but the visibility really isn't there. You cannot see much after a while. But it's a retaining wall. I'd say it's about a 3.5 foot retaining wall, and it goes down about 15 feet, and then it's...
Well, I'll tell you this much. No matter how powerful a light, and I was even thinking about a laser, when you're talking about 80,000 feet, forget it.
Well, they should have some technology that can give me an idea of how deep this thing is. I mean, obviously, the old fishing line method is only going to go so far.
What we need here is a volunteer. Real, I'm serious. Somebody who would be willing to be lowered into this hole.
Well, I don't. To be honest with you, I don't even know if there's any air down that far. I mean,
I wouldn't know about that either.
Or what
true.
kind of pressures we're dealing with. These are things that are totally beyond my grasp in terms of knowledge about these things. But
do you own this property?
It's our property, yeah.
How long have you been working on this?
Well, we've been out there for a couple of years. I said about 4 years now, but this project here with letting down the line, that's only been since last summer here. And it was just, I said, well, how come this thing isn't filling up?
That one gave me kind of shivers. Like it
Listen,
reminded me.
All I'm saying is just listen to that with no visual cues whatsoever. Just close your eyes and tell me what you hear.
Holes. I think Roman should volunteer. I think he should.
I'm
go down
in.
there.
I'll do it. I'll go down.
I
that's
thought you were going to say Roman should write a book, How to Fill a Hole.
No, that's not good. That's not healthy. That's
Olive Garden breadsticks.
Bottomless hole needs endless breadsticks.
Death Row, you mentioned a show called Outer Range. I do remember that show. I watched the first season of it. That's about a guy who discovers
season
a
2
hole.
is done now. Season 2 is out.
Where he jumped through that hole and he like went back in time, or it was like a time.
It was a time change device.
I wonder if that show was inspired by this conversation.
It seems like a lot of stuff has been inspired by show wise and movie wise. Something that was heard on Art Bell show. It's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah,
that they would make this.
Because he was a rancher in the show, and then he would throw stuff down there, and he didn't know where it went.
Yeah, it would just go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Little did he know it was like landing like around his.
Yeah, and that's Josh
ranch.
Brolin. The cast on that show is very good.
Yeah,
it's not like a throwaway sci-fi show. It's a really good show.
I think it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. It's very low key though. It's not like crazy excitement kind of stuff. No. It's like wow.
The Salty Nerd podcast did a really good review of the first season. I do recommend listening to it. So Subtle says here, Roman has filled more holes.
Thank you, Subtle. Once again, Subtle, for adding content to
I'm gonna throw one in there. That was a good one. Well, there we go. That was the last story of the night. Now Art Bell with honors, despite his enigmatic nature, Bell contributes were widely recognized and celebrated by his peers and industry professionals. So in August 2006, he was actually inducted into the Nevada Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame. Later on, in March 10th of 2007, he became the News Talk Radio Lifetime Achievement Award winner. Which was also unparalleled. In 2008, his career was further immortalized when he was inducted into the esteemed National Radio Hall of Fame. Now, this is where we're at the point where that's pretty good. Like that's a lot of good awards.
I'm impressed he's in the NBA Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. Never mind. Okay. Haha. Funny. Missed it. So I'm gonna go down the line here. I'm gonna start with Roman. How do you believe Art Bell influenced radio and even today's YouTube? I know you mentioned earlier a little bit. After hearing all of those calls, how do you think he influenced?
I think he changed the landscape. I really do. Between shows like and you have Alex Jones out there, of course, crazy Alex Jones, who I love and think he's mostly not wrong, but without Art Bell, you don't get probably 90% of the radio shows you have now, though, as far as the call-in content and speaking on the topics at length. And certainly, I'll go back to YouTube. YouTube is something I don't think you would get in the way that we have it now without Art Bell, because he opened up that door to the weird and the fantastical. So, I mean, we talk about all kinds of topics on YouTube's, but does that even, it's not fix-it videos or, hey, I like this thing. We speak about things at length. We'll talk about something for 2, 3, 4 hours on YouTube. If it's something that we really love to talk about. And Art Bell was the guy who could do that. And we don't have callers, we have chat. It's not that difference, really. But he's the one, in my opinion, who made all of that happen. And I still look forward to when I turn I tune in on Spotify and I hear that theme start up and I'm doing my walk with my dog. I'm like, I've got a great hour and a half ahead of me of listening to
Yeah.
something that is still 30 years later.
Yeah, a lot of
gonna
those calls
engage
were
me, and
from,
I'm
like
gonna
I said,
go, and it's gonna be like, oh, I love this so much.
and we had
So-
fun tonight. Those calls that we went over were years, decades old, and we were all still enjoying it, laughing and talking about them.
They
So
age very well.
they do. They're very evergreen in some ways. R2, how do you think? What do you think? How he influenced you, or even the social media world, and that stuff like that?
I mean, there was nobody who had anything like that. Like, everybody's talking about like classic radio, right? He was kind of in this odd corner of radio. Because one, he was on AM, but he also broadcasted on shortwave too. That was another way you could listen to the show. And, I mean, again, he kind of brought the kind of oddball perspective that you didn't get in mainstream media. You didn't hear it anywhere else.
I'm sure he was like always a number one go-to for a lot of late night driver truckers.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was, I think for a lot of people who were up late, I mean, that was, if you were, right, for somebody, yeah, if you drove, right, I mean, he was like kind of like Johnny Carson in a way, right? I mean, he was your entertainment for late night via radio. And I mean, yeah, just finding him on YouTube and just, again, like all the content. I mean, there's just so much.
There's a ton. There's a ton on that Coast to Coast website.
Well,
by the way.
and you can, I mean, I want to say, if you subscribe to it too, there's even more that you can unlock.
Yeah.
Of his, but it's at the same time too. Again, it's just, it's such a bummer he's not around. It would be so intriguing to hear his perspective, even if he wasn't on the radio, just to see his tweets.
I wish he was alive to see the UAP hearings in Congress. I mean, that alone, it's like, there's things that happen, like you mentioned. I'm like, I wish Art was here to see this.
Yeah, if he was around for like some of the UFO sightings that we've had recently, I think would have been pretty cool. Lambercy, well, go ahead, R2.
I would say, but the other sad fact too about him passing, I'll say, and this is not brought up a lot though, but he was a dad too. I mean, he had a daughter that I think was like 8 or 10 years old, and then he had just had a son that was like a year old when he passed. And his kids were a real big deal to him in his life. So that always makes me real sad about that too.
I think Lamberty, what after listening to these, I don't know if some of these were the first times for you or not, but how do you think he impacted or influenced what we do today?
The thing about him is, to expand more on what R2 and Roman said, he influenced a lot of people today, if not directly, indirectly. His ability to craft a story and allow others to actually tell their story, control the callers, and make sure that people get a nice, clean show that's broadcasted and presented clearly, while at the same time presenting alternative ideas that was an unknown territory at the time, I think has spread all the way across media, be it podcast, YouTube, whatever the case may be. Now people, if they're passionate about it, they took a lot of lessons, if not directly from him, indirectly by other people who took it from him. So even people nowadays who are just getting into social media and YouTube and podcasting and stuff may not even realize that a lot of the way that they conduct their show was originally initiated by Art Bell himself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I try to keep it clean here for the most part. So that was a joke. R2 was supposed to say something funny, he never did. So but crop circles on Mars. What do you how do you think he influenced you, and how did he influence you as an artist? I know in your comic book. That's a good
there's a lot there. So late 80s, early 90s, AM radio was dying, and this gentleman named Rush Limbaugh came at AM radio with talk radio with a new approach, right? And love him or hate him, Rush Limbaugh reinvigorated AM radio and talk radio. Because I mean, I will listen to NPR in tiny sliver doses, but Rush Limbaugh created a format, created a genre that was extremely vibrant, extremely lucrative, but it was confrontational. It was combative. It was kind of some name calling, and it was some kind of joking around. But it was very like this, and it was a lot of the get people riled up, so they want to call in and they want to argue, right? So within that milieu, Art Bell started, and he said, "I don't want to do this anymore. I want to talk about other stuff."
Yeah.
So Art Bell took the genre of AM talk radio, and he said, "I'm going to do something different with it." So in that regard, he was an innovator in terms of his topic matter. But I will posit that if there's people after Art Bell that were on Coast to Coast that did not do it as well as he did. There was something unique about Art in terms of a skill set, his ability to paint a mental picture, his ability to his dry sense of humor, his ability to get you to kind of be on the edge of your seat and suspend disbelief and say, Art, I'm gonna follow you with this on this, Art. I'm gonna see where this goes. And just like I mentioned earlier, people sitting around a campfire telling tall tales, sharing stories, the theater of the mind. He was a master at the craft,
right?
And so I think he's an American folk hero and endlessly entertaining. And I think that that ability to paint a mental picture and the theatrics of I'm going to allow you to suspend disbelief, follow us where it leads, and let people like tell their stories. And then additionally, he started kind of really before the internet, and because he was unscreened, he opened up a vein of populism, and he opened up the airwaves to kind of this random Americana populism, which I think occurred prior to the internet, where you had basically the trolling on the internet. You had the more varied opinions being expressed on the internet and so forth. For good or for ill, he was there ahead of that and democratized the medium to allow alternative points of view and so forth. So, for all those reasons, I think that he was critical. He was a critical figure, important figure, and added a lot of richness to the late '90s and so forth.
You want to add to that, Roman? You have something you point your finger at.
No, I agree.
Oh, okay.
I literally agree with everything that Jason just said. Yeah, that was a lot, but it was that hit it.
And on the cover of Jupiter 1, there's what you might call a UFO. So I think Art Bell is
not a hole. Death Row, you're last, man. What do you think? What are your thoughts about all this?
When it comes, for me, the reason I'm into the obscure stuff is because I'm always wanting to find something that had not been found before.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what Art Bell was doing with his radio show. He was giving people that couldn't speak before or wouldn't be believed anywhere else a voice.
Correct.
And that was awesome. But also, I liked that when he was able to give these people room to talk, that other people were listening, and it was giving these other people ideas to create movies, books, TV shows, and all this. And there's some other TV shows I would like y'all to look at too. There's one called Night Sky on Amazon that's insane, and another one called The Devil's Hour. That's very
Devil's Hour really good. I like The Devil's Hour very much.
Those are both on Amazon.
Yes.
Is The Devil's Hour a movie or a series, or what is it?
It's a series with Peter Capaldi as the lead.
Okay.
So good.
Oh man. It's deep.
Very unexpected what you get out of that show.
Yes.
There was another one on HBO. I don't know if it's like based off an Art Bell thing, but it was a Stephen King. It was on HBO. It was The Stranger, where like this guy comes into town, this weird thing. It's a demon.
My number one found footage movie. And I've told you this before.
Is it Blair Witch?
No, it's Lenopolis.
Yeah.
Lenopolis. All right. If the Area 51 call, they basically take that Area 51 call and copy it, and they use that as the basis for what the movie starts off as, and they start investigating.
I'm not familiar with that.
And it came out in around 2009, 2010. And I'll send the hold on. Right, I got it right here.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat if you want.
There you go.
Defro does have a lot of obscure movies on his channel. If you ever wanted to check out some reviews,
that's kind of, as you can see behind me. I have no.
you live in a video store.
Pretty much.
Well, you guys know Art Bell and Whitley Strieber wrote a movie, a mainstream movie. The Day After Tomorrow was written by them.
What?
That was a terrible movie. I don't want.
Why would you say that?
It was based on the. It was based on the.
It was a horrible movie.
Oh my gosh!
It was based on the coming global superstorm. And
is that the one with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just bad. It was not a good movie.
Yeah.
Why would you bring that up?
It's not all gold.
Well,
it wasn't like it was a phenomenal movie. I just said, did you guys know?
That's enough.
He would always talk about the quickening. He always talk about the quickening.
Watch Rhinopolis instead. How about that?
Sorry, R2. You know I love you. It's okay.
You despise.
I like how that didn't even help at all.
All right. Well, yes, Art Bell did pass away on April 13th of 2018. He was the age of, I guess you would say the right age of 72, and is in his home in Pahrump, Nevada.
And
that's
it
the way
was
to
Friday
go.
the 13th too, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yes. And that's the way to go, right?
In modern era, that's
modern. That's a young age, yes. And he did have some heart issues. I know that's when he retired. He retired like 3 times, I believe. And it was one was because of his wife, one was because he was not feeling very well. But he did. It's nice that he was able to pass away in his own home, in his radio station, where his, he started it all. And I think that's really great. And again, if anyone does want to go back and listen to any of these shows, they're everywhere. You can find them. I suggest that site that we shared. Descriptions will have it as well. I appreciate everyone that came on tonight with my panel of guests. This has been one of my favorite shows. And I'm so glad that Jason, way back in the day, you're like, hey, we should do this. And I'm like, yeah, we should. So one influence that I'm going to try to do for the channel going forward, I might actually start bringing on people that don't normally go on YouTube, but have some interesting stories to tell. So I might start bringing some people.
Did you find Bugs?
Bugs.
No, I don't think Bugs is alive anymore.
No. Bugs, if he's alive, he's on the run. So
yeah. So if you aren't
hobolos on the street,
statute of limitations run out for Bugs.
Not on murder. There is no statute of limitations on murder, Jason.
Yeah, they do have rights, I guess. What do you think?
What was he doing?
Well, I do want to show Lambercy's meme here. So let me see.
I did it literally while we were live.
So let's see here. He thought this was funny. I am going to show this, and then that way we'll have that funny. So this is what he thought about the Bigfoot people.
Yes. Don't start a blast.
Come on, there was red eyes. Red eyes.
He did have red eyes. They did have red eyes. And again, if anybody who's here and you want to share out the show, some of these will be clipped out. I'll put them in separate videos later on. But I will be traveling for work for about a week. So you just look forward to the shorts that I put out as the mystery shorts. There might be some other clipped out videos going out while I'm on this work trip. So you won't see any more live shows for a couple weeks. But back in May, like I said, there should be hopefully some interesting things going on with this channel. And I'm very excited about it. Why are you smiling, R2?
Because
he always smiles.
He never when he's smiling, he's up to something. All right, everyone. Thanks again.
Can I show my cut of the Area 51?
I know Roman, are you okay with him showing this cut? Are you okay? You have time?
Fine. I'm late. I actually need to go as literally as soon as I possibly can. But
okay.
It's under 3 minutes.
If you get in trouble, blame R2. Okay.
Yeah.
I will. She won't buy it, but I will.
Tell her I'm sorry. We had such a great time hanging out with you. So go ahead, R2. Share your clip.
Let me know if you guys could hear the sound.
No.
Well, it's not playing sound yet.
Okay.
That would be why. That's important to note. No, there should be sound now, I imagine. Otherwise, this is just weird.
Whole lot of weird.
Yeah, what's going
All
on
right.
here, R2?
Okay, guys, I got to jump out. I'm sorry, but I do have to go. So
R2, you can share it in the comments when you're done. I don't know what happened
despite
there.
the weirdness. But I'm going to jump out now, JT.
Yeah.
because so I don't go to jail for the rest of my life and not get to do shows anymore. So thank you for having me on this. It was an awful lot of fun. It was good seeing some of you for the first time, some of you again.
Nice meeting you, Roman.
But man, we are so screwed. So, all right, I'll talk to you later. Watch out for those black helicopters and Bigfoots who got shot. I'll see you around the interwebs.
All right. Everyone, again, thanks for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. This has been great. Did you figure out the sound? Or no? Are you good?
Oh, you guys couldn't hear it?
No.
Okay. You're done.
Okay.
You're done for
never
the night.
mind.
You're done for the night. Okay.
Sorry.
You're done.
You're being put on timeout. We're putting you in the corner with a dunce cap.
I thought I clicked on the thing that said add audio to it, but I'm sorry.
It's okay.
He's not sorry at all. He did it on purpose. Don't let him lie to you.
Well, Lambercy and Jason and Defro and R2, thanks for coming on. This has been really fun. And everyone, like I said, I hope to maybe clip some of this out and you can share like the little videos to your friends. And if you're new here, thanks for subscribing. I think I had a few new subscribers come in the chat. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
And everyone, you have a safe and be careful not to run through the woods and
Don't
be
crouch.
shot. And don't crouch and don't wear like a fur coat. And you get shot. That's my only advice for the rest of the show. R2 says beep boop boop beep boop. Okay. All right.
God,
and Beard
all I'm
Liberty.
thinking is C-3PO's probably trying to censor you now after that.
Beard of Liberty, I know you were supposed to be on this, but it's okay, dude. Watch the replay. You'll have a great time. All right, everyone. You have a good night. Have a good rest of the week. I will see you next time on Late Night with Cap.